To start our chalk lettering, we are going to start, of course, with our chalkboard. So there are lots of different kinds of chalkboards. I'm just using a basic slate chalkboard. It's nothing fancy, just got a little hanging rope here at the top. Next, we're going to want some chalk. So I've got some basic white chalk, just a set from Crayola. And I also got some colored drawing chalk. Whichever one you use doesn't really make a difference. Most chalk art you're going to see in white. For finer details, you can grab a chalk pencil. So this is pastel chalk. It's got an eraser on the end. We're also going to use that. If you don't use one of these pencils, you can use any kind of pencil eraser or just a regular eraser. We are going to use the eraser. Next, you're going to want a cup of water and a paintbrush. Doesn't have to be anything big. You just got a small round brush here. And finally, we've got a paper towel. Just basic paper towel. We're going to use this for a couple different things. This last item is optional, but I have a slight sensitivity to chalk dust, so I'm going to wear gloves for this. This is not a requirement. To start, we need to season our board. What that means is we're preparing the board for the chalk art, and all we need to do is take a small piece of white chalk and rub it all over the board. Doesn't need to be fancy, you just need to cover everything. And then we're going to take our paper towel and we're going to lightly smooth that out. We're not trying to wipe off all of the chalk. We still want that basic kind of layer of chalk dust underneath. So you can see it's a little cloudier than when we started. And that's what we want to start with. This is going to be very helpful, especially when we get into using the paintbrushes. Next, we're going to prepare our chalk. Now, you can use chalk just like this, basic, like we would use in school, but this tip here is flat and blunt and pretty wide. It's kind of hard to draw with. So I'm going to use my pencil sharpener. I've got a wider hole here that I'm going to use, and just very carefully sharpen your chalk just like you would your pencil. Now I'm going to do it pretty lightly. I'm not going to force it because the chalk can break fairly easily, but you can see it's starting to get that point just like you would with a pencil. You don't need a perfect point at the end. We just want to get it a lot more narrow than the base of the chalk. So let's start with some hand lettering effects, kind of like calligraphy. The basics of this, we're just going to focus on our upstrokes and our downstrokes. So your upstrokes are going to be thin. Your downstrokes, you're going to press harder and they're going to be thicker. Now we can finesse that a little bit more as we go along, but you want to focus on what is an upstroke and what is a downstroke as you go forward here. So I'm just going to start with the word high. Upstrokes very thin. Downstrokes are going to be thicker. And you don't want to press down too hard either because we don't want to leave a shadow on our board once we erase this. So as you saw, I started at the bottom and went up, so that's an upstroke, so we want to keep that thin. Now the downstroke, we want much thicker, so I'm going to draw another line next to it wherever we have a downstroke. This will look similar to brush lettering if we were to use a brush pen. So I'm just going to draw those. And we're going to keep it a single line thin on all the upstrokes. And then we can just fill that in. And again, you don't have to press down too hard. We don't want to get chalk dust everywhere. Just want enough to get that color on the board. So that's our basic letters. Now we can go back in and we can add some shadows in a couple different ways. We can use a basic pencil eraser and just erase where we want to put those shadows. So that's usually going to be on one side or the other of the letter. So I'm going to say my light is coming from the left here, and it's going to go down and to the right. So anything below and to the right of the letters is going to get a bit of a shadow. So just erase this like you would any pencil. And this is one of the reasons why we seasoned our chalkboard first, so that you get that kind of cloudy thing, and this is removing that extra layer of chalk and making it darker, giving us a shadow effect. You might need to clean off your eraser a little bit depending on how clean your board was to start. Now if you can see here, we have kind of our dusty background, our chalk letters, and then we have this darker shadow underneath. Now I erased a little too much right here, so all I need to do is just go back over that line. It's almost like it was never gone. This is much easier to fix than regular hand lettering. You can get this same effect using a paintbrush, just a little bit of water. We don't want to get our board very wet. We don't want to get rid of any chalk that we still want. Well, we're just gonna kind of paint in that shadow. What it's doing is actually picking up the chalk and cleaning that part of the board. And you are going to want to clean off your brush just every couple strokes so that we're not pushing that chalk dust around. So this is why I use a very fine paintbrush. So I don't want to be taking off huge chunks of my letters here. As you can see, the paintbrush approach does get you a much darker shadow. So now I'm going to show you just another very easy basic effect that we can do, which is outlines. So I'm going to start with a light green, and I'm just going to draw out a couple of letters here. We're going to go with EPO. And again, we don't want to press down too hard. We don't want this to stay on our chalkboard forever or have to wash off our chalkboard to get rid of it later. So I'm just going to do EPO, and then I'm going to fill in. I'm going to dip it very lightly with this light green. And we don't have to worry about this being perfect in there. If you don't like to see those lines, you can always go in with your paper towel and just smooth it out a little bit. But it will take away some of the vibrancy of your color. This is now just a more translucent version of what we had. So what we want is actually the outline. We're not too concerned about the middle. So I'm going to take my darker green and I'm going to go around and fill in the outline of these letters. And again, we don't want to press down too hard. We don't want to leave a shadow, and we don't want to break our chalk. So this gives us a much more vibrant outline of the letters. And you can make that outline as thick as you want. If you want something really dynamic, go in, trace around those letters a little bit more, get a much thicker outline. We could also make these block letters. I have 3D by drawing lines at an angle down from whichever direction. So again, if we were thinking earlier that the light was in the upper left-hand corner, this would be kind of similar. We're looking at it at an angle, so we see that outline coming away from the letters on the right here. You can see now it has a 3D effect. And if you wanted, you could go in with another color very lightly and fill in that differently. You can use the same color, different color. It's up to you. That's our basic outlines and 3D block lettering. If you've watched some of our makery vinyl cutting videos, this next trick will be familiar to you. What we're going to do is we are going to transfer a design onto our chalkboard. First, I need to go through and season my board again. And you want to draw out your design, or if you are not very artsy or you don't like your handwriting, you can also make a design on your computer and print it out. So I just did a very quick design with a brush pen based on a baby shower invitation I just received. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over the paper, and I'm going to move my chalkboard out of the way for a moment. And I'm just going to stick with my white chalk for the moment. But I used a thinner paper just so I could see through the back easier. You can use any kind of paper as long as you can see through it. What we're going to do is we're going to trace the design with our chalk. You saw I broke my chalk, that's why we don't press down too hard. So this is great if you, like I said, don't have great handwriting, you saw a design that you really liked and you weren't sure if you could replicate it, or if you have a lot of pieces that are very close together and you don't want to risk erasing or messing up part of one of the words while you're doing the other. Now, I didn't really like the way the T looked on the, so I'm just gonna go over just the part I want to keep, and I will fix that once I transfer the chalk. Alright, so I'm gonna bring my chalkboard back, and I'm going to put this down with the chalk side down. Then we're going to take our pencil and just scribble over everything we just traced. Now you may want to tape this down just in case, so it doesn't move around while you are scribbling on the paper. So now I've got a outline of my transfer, and I can go back in with my chalk and clean it up. And I'm going to trace over those areas, clean it up a little bit how I want it to look. Okay, and I'm going to go back and just go over some of those downstrokes, make them a little bit thicker so we get that nice hand lettering effect. Alright, and this doesn't have to stay just white. We can go back in and we can add some different effects. So one thing you can do is if you wanted a little bit more narrow or fine details, you can use your chalk pencil. So I've actually got pastel chalk pencil here. And I'm just going to kind of go in and give some of these ends a more fine point here. Could also go back and kind of make it a 3D effect with a very thin outline. Just gives it a little bit more depth, makes it a little bit more interesting. See that very well, but now got that outline kind of shadow look. And I'm going to add some color to the background here. Do this kind of broadly. Let's fill in that moon. Now, of course, I want to be very careful around other letters. And I'm going to go back in with my fingertip here. Just kind of blend it a little bit, make it a little bit more blurry. And again, be careful around the existing words you have there. But this can help get it a little bit closer, make it look just a little bit more gentle. And then you can always go back in and fix the outline if you want. Make this a little bit wider. And if you do happen to get those letters, just go back over it with your chalk. With this, we can also add a bit of an ombre effect if we want. So I'm not going to worry about sharpening it this time, but I'm going to put in a little bit of orange here. And just do it right on top of the yellow. You don't want to do it too much, but in the areas where you do want it to be more orange, you can go over it a bit more. Just smooth it out again. Now these two colors are fairly similar, so it's not quite as vibrant, but you could use any colors and blend them together like this. I left out a word from the original one because it was kind of small, so I'm just going to write it on here directly. So those are just some very basic tips to get you started with chalk lettering. You can use all kinds of hand lettering techniques using the chalk, but you have a little bit more freedom here because you can always erase it and start over, and you are not committed to whatever is on the page like you would be with markers or ink. Thank you for watching. If you do try out some of this chalk art, please tag us on social media at Ask Elmhurst, and check back every other Saturday for new skills and activities.